Colonel Mark. At the back there is the National Chief Secretary of the Salvation Army, so it's terrific to have such a senior member of the Salvation Army here with us at this launch today, and all the other community leaders here, all the other Salvation Army representatives here who I see many in their uniform. Ladies and gentlemen, the media who is here as well, it's terrific that you can all come along for this important launch today. I think that this is Australia at its best, when you've got communities from across Australia coming together, all for a great cause of helping those in need. And what an event this is, which has been going on for 2 decades. Joseph, you mentioned a bit about the origins of the Salvation Army. And as you rightly pointed out, starting in 1880 in Adelaide, where the first meeting was held. And at that particular time, as you mentioned one of the gentlemen there, John Gore. There was 2, John Gore and Edward Sanders, who established it here in Australia. John Gore made a very famous quote in that very first meeting at the back of the greengrocer's cart in the Adelaide Botanical Gardens, and he said, "If there's a man here who hasn't had a square meal today, let him come home to tea with me," which is a magnificent quote. I believe stated at that very first meeting of the Salvation Army, almost 140 years ago today in Adelaide. And of course now it's spread across Australia, but still with that overall same ethos of helping the person who is in need. And today, of course, the Salvation Army does such tremendous work at an unbelievable scale. I would actually say, Joseph, that the Salvation Army is possibly Australia's best loved charity. And Joseph mentioned some of the incredible work which it does and the impact it does on families across Australia. The 100,000 meals per week, the 2,000 beds I think you mentioned, the assistance to 500 people every single week who may have a gambling or an alcohol or a drug addiction. And of course, behind each one of those numbers is an individual or a family who is often in desperate need for whatever reason that's going on in their life at that particular time. And the Salvation Army is there and is always there to lend a helping hand 24/7, 365 days a year. And I think the key thing to say about that is that when you look at those numbers in terms of the people who are homeless or who are hungry or who may have addictions, it doesn't matter what your background is, what your religion is, what your political views are, what your ethnicity is, you can still face homelessness in this country. Gambling addictions don't distinguish between people of different religions. Being hungry doesn't distinguish between people of different ethnicities. It applies across the board to all people. And indeed, going back to that famous quote of Mr. Gore when he said, "If any man is hungry today, let him come home to tea with me," he didn't make a distinction between whether or not that person was from a particular background or another. It was open to all, just as Jesus was open to all people and caring for all people. And that's why I think that a multicultural launch of the Australian Red Cross, the Salvation Army Red Shield appeal is such a great initiative because it does involve everybody. And I just commend Joseph for your initiative in this. I commend Sheba for your leadership of this as well, and I commend particularly the Salvation Army representatives here and the thousands of volunteers who get behind it each and every year. There is the target of $73 million this year. I hope we hit that target as you tend to each and every year, but we'll only hit it if we all join together as Australians and make a contribution, either through our voluntary efforts or through our hip pockets. But if you can make a donation of some description of your time or of your money or both, then I encourage you to do so. Thank you very much again for having me along here today. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here and help launch the Salvation Army's 2018 Multicultural Red Shield Appeal. May there be strength in your arm and may God bless you. Thank you very much.